hearing is for public comments on our sex ed curriculum. Dr. Leckie, will you please approach and present how the format and public comment will work for tonight's meeting?
Board President Johnson, board members, Mr. Knutson, community. We will be holding this public hearing as part of Arizona Revised Statutes 15-711, as well as Board Policy IHAMB, to solicit and collect public comment on a proposed sex ed curriculum for adoption by the board at a later date. The way that this format will work is that the panel here, including myself, Ms. King and Ms. Vitamos from the County Health Department, will provide an overview of the adoption process as well as the proposed curriculum, after which we will open up the public hearing for comment from the community. We will follow our typical public comment procedures with one exception. So any public member that would like to provide comment to the board for consideration would need to fill out a request to speak form, which can be found on the table just past the stairs. Please hand that form to Ms. Ize. She will be raising her hand and moderating tonight. She will go ahead and call individual members to the podium. They will have 3 minutes to speak on the topic, at which time their time will end, and we will continue with public comment. If at any point we feel like there is any divisive comments or derogatory information being provided against any staff member, we ask that the public refrain from those comments, but we will be able to answer questions from the panel on any of the content that's presented tonight. In addition, the public comment period will continue beyond this board meeting. There will be an additional board meeting as well as an electronic form for community members to provide comment. I'll go over all this again in my presentation as far as the process. Ms. Ize will call you up to the podium. Make sure you fill out the form completely, hand that to her, and then she'll call you up in the order in which your form was received.
And correct me if I'm wrong, that form can be filled out multiple times throughout the evening, but you can only speak once, correct?
Yes, so in a typical board meeting, public comment, the form needs to be completed prior to the meeting starting. We're going to allow that to be done throughout the night, but each board member is only afforded one opportunity to speak. We have scheduled up to 2 hours for public comment if we have enough members who wish to speak, at which time we will close down public comment and reschedule for the next board meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Leckie.
Dr. Leckie, can you confirm how much time do the speakers have?
They have 3 minutes to speak, and I believe our tech department will display the timer on the screen for them to keep track of their time.
Thank you.
Any other board members have any questions before we start? Floor is yours, Dr. Leckie.
Mr. Johnson, if you would be so kind as to officially open the public hearing.
Yes. I would like to officially open the presentation on the hearing on teen pregnancy program curriculum adoption is now open.
I'm just waiting for our presentation to be displayed on the screen. Okay, again, Board President Johnson, Vice President Ms. Jones, board members, Mr. Knutson, and community. Again, we're holding this presentation as a part of our adoption process for any sex ed curriculum or program that the district wants to propose for adoption. I want to be clear that tonight's presentation is informational. The board will not be voting on adoption any earlier than July for the process to be completed. It's quite extensive to allow for a lot of opportunity for public review and input prior to the board making any kind of vote on adoption. So I have with me Ms. Eureka King. She is our school health liaison. She is the person who teaches these programs in schools. Our liaison used to be Naomi Marietta, who is also joining us tonight and has been wonderful. Ms. King will be our school health liaison moving forward. We also have Ms. Vitamos here from the Pinal County Health Department as well. She is a program manager. I probably got that title wrong. Sorry, Ms. Vitamos. She's high up, so she tells me what we need to do sometimes here, but she's going to be here to answer any questions and provide some background information as well. So we're going to split this up into two presentations. I'm going to do an initial presentation on our process, and then I'm going to turn it over to Ms. King. She's going to provide an overview of the curriculum itself, and then we'll be able to provide an opportunity for comment and then questions and clarifications if necessary. All right, so let's get started. Again, I'd referenced this earlier. So there's three main procedural guidelines that we follow through this adoption process. We have, as is necessary, gotten legal guidance from our attorney to make sure that we're in compliance with the law on this. But there was a recent statute passed, and that's ARS 15711, which provides guidance on how we need to move forward with these program adoptions. There's also an Arizona Administrative Code, which is another procedural regulation that we need to work through. And then finally, we have a school board policy in which we are following as a matter of our school district's specific policy. So there's three main components to the process for adopting a program. The first was to establish a curriculum adoption advisory committee. That needed to be made up of stakeholders who are demographically representative of the district, and then that committee's job was to evaluate and propose a potential curriculum for adoption. I'll elaborate on each of these components as we move forward. The second part of this is public review and comment. As with any curriculum adoption, we put that curriculum up for 60-day review. It needs to be on display for 60 days, in which during that time, the public can come and review that curriculum. The difference with this curriculum, the sex ed curriculum, as opposed to, say, an ELA or a math adoption, is there's the requirement that these curriculum materials also be digitally accessible, and that the public have an opportunity to provide comment not just in person, but electronically. So we've made that available as well. And then finally, this is an additional requirement as well, is that the governing board hold 2 public hearings, a minimum of 2 public hearings prior to the potential vote for adoption, in which they solicit input from the community. And so this is one of those 2 scheduled special board meetings for us to make that available for public comment. So our advisory committee. When we established the advisory committee, we wanted it to be as diverse as we could make it, but also representative of our district. Other factors, we also wanted those members to have a stake in the adoption process. So what we had decided on is, and I'll go through each of these, first, assistant superintendent, so I was tasked with leading the work. So I led and facilitated the group. Critical to any decision on this issue was parent involvement. So we determined that the most appropriate parents to invite to participate were parents who were already involved in our parent advisory group. So I put that out there to 2 parents to see if they'd be willing to sit on the committee, and both agreed. So they were willing and already active participants as advisors for the district from different school sites. Those 2 parents also have children that will be or are currently in high school and would be eligible to receive this curriculum. So if we felt like that was also a requirement for parental participation. We had a high school administrator. We chose the administrator from this high school, Poston Butte, as our largest school, to participate, since that administrator will also be overseeing the implementation of any curriculum program at the high school, along with health teachers. So often it is our health teachers that collaborate with our school health liaison on the instructional part of any school health curriculum, not just sex ed, but they also work with our school health liaisons on a number of issues. So we had 2 members of our school health teacher cohort participate. As is appropriate, because this is a health-related issue, we also had our district nurse participate in the process. We had our 2 school health liaisons, which I introduced earlier, because they both taught the program and were most familiar with the programs under consideration and could provide a lot of input to the group when we made the decision. And then finally, of course, this is all about students, so we wanted to make sure we had at least one student representative that could provide input to the group as well. So we had those members, 12 members as part of our district. And again, we tried to balance both the position as well as the racial and ethnic makeup of our group to be representative of our district as a whole. So the advisory committee looked at 3 separate programs that the county health department had provided to us for review, and these were the 3. So you're probably most familiar with Making Proud Choices, which was the previous program that we had went through a part of the adoption process, but did not complete. So we paused that process in, I think it was late January, and reconvened the advisory group to do a more thorough review. In addition to that, there were 2 other programs that the county had provided us for review, Love Notes 3.0 and then Positive Prevention Plus. So those 3 were selected so that there was a wide scope and diversity in the types of curriculum we could consider as we made the decision to evaluate and then ultimately select a program. So to go over the review process, as soon as we had determined the members of our advisory group, we provided digital curriculum access for all 3 programs, and had each of the members review the online curriculum prior to the advisory committee meetings. We had 2 meetings, which was also required by statute, in which the committee considered those programs. So we met for a total of a little over 4 hours to review those programs and make a recommendation. On our first meeting, the biggest thing for us was to determine a method of consensus for what the recommendation would be. We didn't want it to be one person, namely me, making that decision. We wanted it to be a true group decision. And so our method of consensus was that each member at the end of the evaluation process would review the programs and make a preference selection and a ranked order selection for each of the programs. So basically they would put out of the 3, what was their first choice, what was their second choice, what was their third choice. The program or curriculum that had the most first choice selections would be the one recommended. If there was a tie between programs, then we would go with the one that had the most second choice selection, so rank order selection process. We had created just a broad kind of note-taking and evaluation tool in which the members would, as we went through each of the curriculum presentations, write down weaknesses and strengths of each of the programs and how it related to what we determined as key factors for consideration. And so prior to the evaluation, the group had determined that these 5 things were of importance for us, that the programs be evidence-based, that they focus on the sex education component, that they were factual, that they were neutral in terms of values, and that they were time flexible. Each of the 3 curriculums, in my opinion, met those in different ways and had strengths and weaknesses in each of those categories. But we went back to that prior to our last evaluation for the team to consider. So after we had determined those factors, we went into a presentation of each of the programs. On average, the presentation was about an hour for each of them. And then we went in depth, lesson by lesson, activity by activity. Ms. King will do an abbreviated overview today, but each of those lessons were provided kind of context in which how they were taught was important, in addition to just the access and view of the materials. And Ms. King will talk a little bit about that, because I think that's a really important part of our overall evaluation and recommendation, is the way in which the curriculum is taught in the classroom, not just what is presented on the screen when you're reviewing the access. After that portion, there was open discussion about each of the programs. Members had really good questions, really good thoughts around strengths and weaknesses and what they thought was appropriate for recommendation. And then we took a vote at the end in which I collected those vote tallies and provided the results to the group. So at the end of all of that, when we tallied up the first place preferences for each of the three, the Love Notes 3.0 program came out as the selected program with 60% of the vote total. So there were votes for the other two programs, but they were less than half of the total amount for Love Notes. I think one was 30% and the other was 10%. Okay, so that's all I have for the process. And before I turn it over to Ms. King to go over the content, I just wanted to ask the board if they had any questions on any of the procedural components.
Can you tell the audience the grade level that this curriculum is taught in and what class?
Sure, and I know Ms. King's also going to go really in depth on kind of the context of the program as well and what grade levels and students and how they get involved in the program, but it's only for high school with a focus on 9th grade. All right, so if there's no more questions from the board at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. King, and she'll continue with the presentation to do a review of the curriculum. And then we'll go ahead and move into public comment where the board, or both the board and the public can provide comment at the podium.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Make sure I'm working this. Okay. So I do apologize. I wear glasses, and of course, I didn't bring them to read the screen, so I'm going to read off the computer here. So my name is Eureka King. I'm a program facilitator. My program is the Teen Pregnancy Prevention Program. The manager, Naomi Marietta, she was the previous school health liaison. She is now the manager, education and outreach program manager. We do have a new person who came aboard, who is here with us today, which is another school health liaison that will actually be helping me if the curriculum is approved, who will be helping me in the schools present this curriculum, and her name is Alicia Valley. And then we have Jan Vinamos, which is our Community Health Division Manager. So just to give you a little introduction on who we are, we are Pinal County Teen Pregnancy Prevention Program, and our program is designed to improve health outcomes of adolescents through three main goals. Those goals are to reduce the number of teenage pregnancies among 15 and 19-year-olds, to reduce the number of repeated pregnancies among 15 to 19-year-olds, and to reduce the transmission and prevention of STDs among 15 through 19-year-olds. What we do, we implement school-appropriate, scientifically accurate, and evidence-based curricula to meet these goals. When and how long we've been doing this, Pinal County Public Health has been providing services since 1990, and we continue to provide them every year to this present date. Where we do this is we provide services countywide to both district and charter. I'm sorry, I'm moving two things here. Okay. Okay. So how is public health involved? Funded by Arizona State Lottery to reduce teen pregnancies, the program is administered through the Arizona Department of Health Services, which they dictate a strict curriculum fidelity. So this curriculum that we are presenting, Arizona Department of Health Services chooses the curriculums, and we do have strict fidelity how we actually implement these programs in schools. A rigorous procedure is in place to review and approve curriculum adaptations. Love Note is an evidence-based, medical accurate curriculum that promotes abstinence as the most positive choice in avoiding risky behaviors. Why do we need this program? Well, nearly all teen pregnancies are unplanned. That is, teens themselves say that they did not tend to get pregnant or cause a pregnancy as a result of increased access to sexual health information and birth control resources. The United States has seen a decline by 70% in teen births since 1991. However, each year, about 194,000 teens still give birth, which is about 19 births for every 1,000 girls. Nearly 2 out of every 100 teen girls will have a child each year. The fact that teens don't want to get pregnant is a reason enough to ensure that they have access to quality sexual health education and birth control resources. Preventing teen pregnancy helps expand opportunity, create positive and social changes, and allows young people to be stronger contributors in their community. In addition, teen childbearing costs U.S. taxpayers $9.4 billion annually. Teen pregnancies can have immediate and long-term negative effects for teen parents and their children. Our society is burdened with the cost of teen pregnancy, both economic and societal. But our problem is not just pregnancy. We know that there are some young people that engage in sexual behavior that can result in sexual transmitted infections, including HIV. Sexual transmitted infection rates have climbed dramatically in teens, the teen population nationwide, including Arizona. Even though adolescents represent only 25% of the sexually active population, they do account for 50% of the new STI cases. Young people account for 20% of new HIV cases, as many as 1 in 7 don't know that they're infected. So we know that despite the need of comprehensive sex education, there are barriers, and many adults did not receive adequate sex ed when they were young, thus harboring a negative view of sex ed programs in general. In addition, misinformation arises. So I thought this was really important to add barriers, because sometimes when we think of sexual health programs, we think of all these things that the program can teach youth. So we just wanted to bring some barriers up, some myths. So as we see here, myths, sex education encourages teens to have sex. Fact, many studies include those that by the World Health Organization have shown consistently that these programs actually delay sexual activity. They do not increase sexual activity or cause you to have sex at an early age. Another myth is sex ed undermines parents and family authority. Multiple polls have shown that the vast majority of parents support having sex education programs in schools. Some studies show over 90% support from parents. Another myth is sex ed disregards values and morals. Sex education teaches kids to explore and define their personal, family, and cultural values. Myth, a few more myths. Sex ed teaches the mechanics of sex to children. The program is age appropriate. It teaches teens how to abstain and how to protect themselves if they decide to have sex later on. It doesn't teach them how to have sex. Myth, condoms aren't even effective, so teens don't need to learn about them. The United States Program of HIV and AIDS, the United States National Fund for Population Activities, and WHO, which is the World Health Organization, agree that condoms are the single most effective technology to reduce the transmission of STIs and HIV. So this is our approach that we take. We utilize curriculum that are school-appropriate, scientifically accurate, and evidence-based. Love Notes has been proven to provide adolescents the tools they need to reduce the risk of unattended pregnancies, HIV, or other STDs. The curriculum promotes abstinence as a positive choice and stresses the importance of communication with parents and guardians. In addition, model called Adult Preparation will be added to each curriculum to complete Arizona Department of Health Services Teen Prevention Grant requirement. I won't go in depth into all of Love Notes, but just to tell you, Love Notes is a 13-lesson In 13 lessons, youth learn about how to make decisions based on what they want for their own future. They learn what healthy relationships are or are not, while building a set of skills for choosing friends and partners, and for developing and maintaining healthy relationships that do not involve sex. The lessons include evidence-based communication and conflict management skills, parents and families connections, parent and family connection activities are offered at the end of each lesson. And also, I'm sorry, I lost my place here. Okay, and we do encourage them, youth, they are very good conversation starters for healthy relationships and benefits of leaving sex out of their youth relationships. Love Notes builds assets and strengths and protect factors. It appeals to young people's aspirations rather than merely emphasizing what they must avoid. Love Note engages young people in learning more about themselves and support them in cultivating a vision for their future. The goal of Love Notes is to empower youth with skills needed to further their own personal development and to form and maintain healthy relationships and to make wise sexual decisions and to work towards success with education and employment. All youth, regardless of sex, sexual orientation, have attraction. They have emotion and they have desires for healthy relationships. All youth need skills and knowledge to navigate their relationships, make wise sexual choices. This is an LGBTQ inclusive curriculum. The content of Love Notes is relevant to all students and their relationships. So now we're going to actually jump in just real briefly into Love Notes and what it has to offer here. So we did talk about how the curriculum is 13 lessons, and when you add an adult adaptation, it becomes 14. Each lesson is 60 minutes long, so it can take up one class period, and it can be delivered to ages 9 through 12, so it is a high school curricula with emphasis on the 9th grade classes, and it can be administered daily for 14 days, or it can be administered 2 to 3 times weekly until the program is completed. Lesson 1 is Relationships Today. And the purpose of lesson 1 is, I'm just going to give you a quick brief of the curriculum because we don't have a lot of time to go in depth. The purpose of this lesson is just to explore how relationships affect many areas of life, including with current or future children. It works on goals and visions, and it helps students identify a trusted adult to talk to. So in lesson 1, they do identify goals, but they also start encouraging you to talk to their parents about their sexual health. So lesson 2 and 3 are kind of lapped together. And lesson 2 is knowing yourself. And the purpose of that lesson is to educate youth on how good relationships start with understanding self. And so lesson 3 is the purpose. Lesson 3 is my expectations, my future. And the purpose of that lesson is youth will discuss and identify qualities that are important in a friend as well as in a partner. Lesson 4 is attraction and starting a relationship. The purpose of this lesson is to help students build awareness of healthy relationships and recognize the importance of building relationships on qualities that really matter to them. Lesson 5 is the principles of a smart relationship, and the purpose of that lesson is to help students be able to recognize relationships, attitudes, behavior, and choices, and to develop a realistic concept of love. Lesson 6 is it a healthy relationship? And the purpose of this lesson is to help students analyze the differences between healthy and unhealthy relationships and explore issues around breaking up. Lesson 7 is Dangerous Love, and the purpose of this lesson is to deepen youth awareness of abuse behavior and the early warning signs in a relationship. It is also purpose is to raise awareness of the type of dating violence and encourage youth to set boundaries and apply them at the first sign of disrespectful behavior. Okay, so lesson 8 is Decide, Don't Slide, the low-risk approach to relationships. And the purpose of this lesson is to discuss the risks associated with sliding, getting into a relationship too quickly before knowing the person well. The next lesson would be lesson 9, what communication got to do with it. The purpose of this lesson is to raise youth awareness of the role, communication, and the ability to handle conflict, the communication and the ability to handle conflict plays in a relationship success or failure. Lesson 10 is communication challenges and more skills. The purpose of this lesson is to help youth analyze hidden issues that often underline arguments, trigger strong emotions, examine impact of the digital and mobile technology, so a lot of social media that they're communicating on, communication, relationships, social and emotional development, and it even talks a little bit about mental health. Lesson 11 is Let's Talk About Sex, and it explores some key questions that students may have about sex. It also demonstrates a deeper understanding of intimacy and explore how it develops, examines emotional benefits and risks of their sexual decision-making, including the use of online posting. Lesson 12 is Pregnancy, STI, and HIV. And the purpose of the lesson is for the youth to gain accurate information to dispel false assumptions about sex, pregnancy, and STIs and HIV, and learn more about the realities of internet porn, the potential impact it can have, and the realities of the industry. And the last lesson is Through the Eyes of a Child. And the purpose of this lesson is to examine unplanned pregnancies through the eyes of a child and to consider how a stable, healthy marriage helps, or long-term relationship can helps parents analyze the role of fathers in family formations. So is it effective? Okay. Students receive evidence-based sexual health education demonstrates improved knowledge of consequences of sexual activity. It increases communication with parents about sexuality. It delays sexual activity, and it rise in contraceptive use among teens that were already sexually active, and it increases the intent to abstain. What I wanted to add here is because for the last 4.5 years, I've had the opportunity to go into schools and teach a sexual health curriculum. And these were some of the comments that I wanted to share to see how to give you kind of some insight of what you think of the program. And so there was 2 categories. This wasn't part of the part of our education, but I thought I added in there to grab the to see what students thought of the program, were they receiving the messages. So this was for me to see if they got a lot out of the program, but also to see what I can improve in. And so as you guys can see, one of the categories was what students think about teen pregnancy and the prevention program. And then the other category was what youth learn in the teen pregnancy prevention program. And so I do this with every school, and these were just some of the ones that I could take. There were so many amazing answers from students that this program is effective and that it is being received by the youth. Received well by the youth. So in conclusion, the closing is not the purpose of the, so in closing, it is not the purpose of the sexual health education to supplant parental instruction or cultural expectations regarding sexual relationships and behaviors, but rather to complement these values and expectations with the knowledge and the skills necessary to choose healthy relationships and self-protective behaviors. Teen pregnancy and teen STIs are issues that impact our youth health and well-being. We have an evidence-based program that has been proven to help. Pinell County Public Health values the opportunity to work with you and your community and your students to improve the lives of teens. We hope all students have the chance to make it through their teen years without an unattended pregnancy or a disease that could negatively, or STI that can negatively impact their futures. Thank you. That is it.
Thank you very much. Ms. King, I just want to add a couple of additional components to any use of a curriculum in our schools. So in addition to this adoption process, in order for a student to receive this curriculum, they have to have their parents sign a permission form to opt them into the program. So no student in the Florence Unified School District will be taught this curriculum without that consent being provided prior to the instruction. In addition, parents will, by law, have access to the lessons and the curriculum that will be taught in that specific class 2 weeks ahead of time for review and comment. And then finally, the person who will be instructing our students in this program is the school health liaison, Ms. King. It will not be a certified staff member or teacher in the Florence Unified School District, although they will, as our health teachers have always done, be present and support when the school health liaison is teaching that curriculum. So I thought that those were important components also to add for the board to know. So with that, we will open it up first to the board for questions or comment, and then we will turn it over to Ms. Ize to facilitate the public comment.